Hi and welcome back to Socket Hunter's YouTube channel. This is another follow-up video from my Jackson Art haul video, or basically the haul. I bought this test set of non-sanded pastel paper from Jackson's when I ordered, because they were I've tried the number 6 on here, the Metains pastel paper, but the others I actually haven't tried, or I thought I hadn't. I'm quite sure I've used number 3 now that I've looked at it, but I'll get back to that. So these are all papers that are made specifically for pastel drawings, and so for pastel paper you normally want a little bit of tooth, or a good deal of tooth actually, on the paper, and often people do pastel drawings on mid-tone colored paper because it makes your highlights stand out easier, and don't have to work so much. You can use the mid-tone as the mid-tone color. So I got this one. This is from Hahnemühle. The number one is from Hahnemühle Lana Colors pastel paper, and says it's 160 GSM. Now the paper weight of this is a bit funny because, quite frankly, this one is 160, and the back one here it says 350. But I don't feel a whole lot of difference between them. If this had been watercolor paper, this last one would be stiff as a board at 350 GSM. But print paper and pastel paper is a little bit different than watercolor paper. So this Hahnemühle Lana color has actually a fairly smooth texture, surface texture, and it's kind of the same on both sides. Maybe the back side here is a little more textured. I can see a little bit of a texture on the back side compared to the front, and that's often the case with pastel paper. You get like a rough side and a not so rough side, and but I like it's nice and slightly stiff, so it's not, it doesn't crumble up so easy. You don't bend the corners easy and stuff. And I like the color. It's kind of a mid-tone brownish gray. It's a little bit speckled. I don't know if I can get the camera to pick it up. See, it's like got little darker dots on here. So it's a kind of a rustique looking kind of paper, but quite smooth even on the rough side. I'm quite looking forward to trying this because it feels nice, but let's see if how it holds up for drawing. I'll probably be doing separate videos for trying to draw on this, because otherwise it'd be a really long video or very poor drawing. Number 2 is Hahnemühle Ingress pastel paper, 100 GSM, and it is notably thinner and flimsier than the other one. And this is Ingress paper as I remember it, where, again, I'll see if I can get the camera to play along. No. I hope I can show you on one of the others. Ingress paper has markings after the net it has been put out on when they were laying out the fibers. So they have a tendency to have some stripes on, broad stripes on one direction and thinner stripes going the other direction. And this is Ingress paper as I remember it from when I was younger, and I was given Ingress paper to use for pastel drawings and also for charcoal drawings. This is cream colored, and it has a deckled edge on 2 sides and a straight edge on the other 2. which doesn't really matter, because if you're not doing a pastel drawing, you should really immediately after you're done put it in frame it, so that you don't rub out the pastel. It's quite fragile. Number 3 is Clairefontaine's, and it is also an Ingress paper. All of these are non-sanded. That is. I'm a little unhappy that they stuck a sticker on here. I hope I can take it off. Now that might leave a little bit of glue on the paper, so I'm wondering if it doesn't feel like it. But if something either sticks too much or not at all in there, that's why. It's got it's like got little hairs in here, or it looks like hair. Little strands of darker fibers, and it's kind of an ivory cream color. And this is heavier textured than the first one. Actually, it's heavier textured than both of the ones that I've looked at this far. But the thickness is, it seems to be the same as the first one, but on my paper it says that this is a 350 gram paper and this is only 160, but this one feels stiffer. But yeah, it's quite textured, so I'm quite sure this is good for pastel, because it will hold, the more texture you get, the more pastel it will hold on to. Now, I didn't buy these as such for doing pastel work on it. I could, but I actually wanted to try colored pencils on it, and I'm quite sure this one isn't good. This is Clairefontaine's, and it's equally textured on both sides, but so I'm quite sure this is probably not fantastic for colored pencils, but it's gonna be super for pastels, as it was meant to be. Number 4 is Fabriano Ingress pastel paper, and here I think I can maybe get the camera to show you what I talked about the pattern. You can see the broad stripes, at least. You can see those lighter bands going here. Let's see if I can get some light. I will show you the rest of the texture. Yeah, you can see it there on the edge of the right edge. They got some texture going down there. That is very, very typical Ingress paper pattern. And this is supposed to be 160 GSM. I totally believe that the numbers are right. It is just I can't really use it for much, because if 160 can feel more stiff and thicker than 360, then it doesn't make any much difference. So this is kind of a gray, warm gray color. The texture seems to be a little rougher on this side than the other side. So that's interesting. Number 5 is also a Fabriano. This is Tiziano pastel paper. So this is not Ingress, and it has more like a honeycomb kind of structure, and it's, again, the color of this is kind of a little mixed. There's some fibers of different colors in here, and the back side is maybe a fraction smoother than the front, but there's not a huge difference. I think this might be good for colored pencils. And then last but not least, KANZEN Mutains pastel paper. I know a lot of people use this, and it comes in a lot of colors. It has a honeycomb structure on one side, and it's quite smooth on the other. And this is, I believe this color is called Eggshell. And so, and I know this is okay for colored pencils, but also really good for pastels. So what I think I will do is I'm gonna cut these up, because these are all larger than A4. And I don't really, it's a size that I think it's a little big for me to do a drawing on as such. So I'll cut them up in half, and maybe I should do pastel pencil on one, or pastels, soft pastels on one, and color pencils on the other half of the paper. Or maybe even cut them up in quarters and try soft pastels, color pencils, and maybe some oil pastels on some. I'll have to think about that. So, but it was a quick show of these different types. In general, you might notice that all of this is kind of thin paper. It is stiff, but still thin compared to watercolor paper. And that's because it's made for something entirely different than what you need for watercolor. There's no information of what it's made of, so it could be cellulose or it could be cotton rags. It doesn't say. I would have to go in and look up each brand, but I know they're all acid free, and so there's no lignin in here, so they don't get crisp and they don't grow yellow over time. So it's an archival paper. And I really appreciate Jackson and other material suppliers for doing this, making collections of the different kinds of paper. Because if you have to buy whole sheets or blocks of paper, just trying to find out what you need, this is not cheap paper at all, and no art paper is cheap. So it can be really expensive. If I had to buy 6 pads of a pastel paper just to find the one that I want to use, that would have set me back a lot of money, and I might have 5 pads or even 6 lying around that I wouldn't use because they didn't suit my purpose. So absolutely thank you Jackson and Bromley's and Art Devos and whoever else I've noticed do this. It is super. And I mean, they hand write the numbers of the paper with on each sheet with a pencil, so you can erase that. You get usable paper this way. That is absolutely super. I would have liked to get the sanded pastel paper pack too, but that was sold out. So maybe next time. I will end this video, and I can't promise it when it will be up, but I will cut this up and I'll do some drawings on it with different materials. I have to think about a little bit how I do this. So thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe.